Hi friends, today we are going to discuss the following topics. In GS2, yesterday we have discussed India-Australia relations. We will continue some aspects of that. Then in GS3, we know that recently Cabinet has taken some important decisions regarding agricultural market reforms. We will discuss about them. And with respect to prelims related, we will discuss employment and savings trends. And finally, if time permits, we will discuss the new Cold War debate between US and China, which is relevant to GS2 and interview. So we have discussed yesterday how Australia is important to India. Especially I have stressed upon the natural resources. In line with that, the meeting which happened on Thursday between Indian Prime Minister and the Australian head, the following agreements have been signed. The important among them are extraction of critical elements, military logistics support. We have already similar agreement of military logistic support with US, France and Singapore. Australia has added to that. So now 4 countries with that agreement with India. Then the overall India-Australia partnership and ties has been upgraded to comprehensive strategic partnership. So that means that cooperation has got deepened. In some other video, I will discuss about this, what is comprehensive strategic partnership, what is strategic partnership. I will try to explain in detail about those things. For now, just remember that India-Australia ties have been upgraded to comprehensive strategic partnership. Okay, then upgrading of key dialogue, foreign and defense secretary level dialogue has been shifted to minister level. So this is also another sign that India-Australia cooperation got deepened. So you can give to these two arguments to say that India-Australia ties are on upward trajectory. One is partnership has been upgraded to comprehensive strategic partnership, then upgrading of key dialogue between, from the secretary level to the minister level. Okay, then what are the agreements signed between India and Australia is to remember. I will give you a technique. For now, first I will quote the things: cyber security, defense and extraction, in defense and extraction, in the extraction, mining of critical elements. How can you remember these things? For example, it is between Australia and India, right? So India, you assume it as Bharat. So Australia and Bharat, what are the agreements signed? Cyber security, defense and extraction of elements. So to remember it, you can remember A, B, C, D, E. I use this framework for many things. For example, what are the advantages of having Chabahar port, building Chabahar port in Iran for India? This can be remembered through ABCD. How? A means Afghan connect. Through Chabahar port, you can connect to Afghan easily at a lesser distance compared to the land route. So that is one thing. I mean, Afghan route, Afghan land route, you have to traverse through roundabout. Instead, you can go through this route, that is Afghan connect through the waters. Then B is bigger link. It not only connects Afghanistan, it also connects the Central Asia. That is why it is called bigger link. C means cost cutting. Cost cutting means, I already told you, it is a little shorter route. It will cut the cost for the Indian government to export something to Iran or to import something from Iran. All those things will be coming under cost cutting. D means drag and offset. Why did they call drag and offset? Dragon means, here they are referring to China. China has a base near Gwadar port of Pakistan. So having India's presence in Chabahar port will help to monitor what is happening in Gwadar. So advantages of having Chabahar port can be remembered through ABCD. And here Australia, Bharat, what are the recent agreements signed? To remember, you can use this acronym ABCDE. Between Australia and Bharat, they have signed cyber security, defense and extraction of critical elements. So whatever I have discussed in the yesterday's paper and this one, you can club them together and make notes. Okay. The second topic is related to cabinet nod for agri marketing reforms. So recently cabinet has approved many uh, many amendments with respect to the agricultural marketing reforms, which I will discuss now. They are relevant in GS3 syllabus in this topic: storage, transport, and marketing of agricultural produce, and issues and related constraints, e-technology in the aid of farmers, and also they are in a way related to food processing, supply chain management. So under these two topics, this is relevant. Okay. So what is, before the amendment, what is the status? Why if there is some amendment, it would have come with some purpose, right? So what is that purpose? The purpose is, before discussing purpose, I will discuss what is the present status. The central and state governments concurrently control production, supply, and distribution of certain commodities. How much you can produce, how much stocks you can hold, all these things, and what should be the price. All these things are currently under the hold of central and state governments, which is a kind of discouraging the private investors to get into this domain. So to change that, government has brought the following amendments. So through the first amendment we are discussing is, this is the amendment to Essential Commodities Act. Under the Essential Commodities Act, cereals, pulses, oilseeds, edible oils, onion and potatoes, all these who have been till now under Essential Commodities Act, and you are supposed to follow the government guidelines with respect to holding of the stocks. You cannot hold beyond what government has prescribed. Now that restriction will go away because these things have been removed from the Essential Commodities Act. Why government has removed these things is, earlier this Essential Commodities Act was during 1950s. So during that period we were not a food surplus country. So to ensure no one goes hungry, government has to take certain measures. Government has to ensure certain stock holdings so that the food grains will be equitably distributed to all the places of India. Government has to ensure proper stock holdings. So it shouldn't be, not a large amount of holdings cannot be under one person. That may lead to misuse, that may lead to cartelization, all those stuff. So to discourage that, Essential Commodities Act was brought during that time. But now it is not relevant because we have become food surplus. So, but this food surplus did not result in the better price for the farmers because you cannot hold beyond certain amount of stocks, and when there is no adequate demand in your region, in your local region, if you don't have adequate demand, what you will do, you cannot hold them, and at the same time you cannot sell them because you don't have demand in your local region. So you are forced to burn the produce, or you are forced to throw them away. So to overcome that situation, this surplus did not result in better prices for farmers due to lack of investment. So had there been no such limits, some private investor can come and he can invest in cold storage and godowns so that these food grains can be kept under that storage and they can be supplied to other places across the country. All those things can be done. You may ask, why can't government itself can do that? The point is, you have to remember that agriculture is a state subject. There are many rules, which inhibit the farmers and the traders to do outside the state. Interstate trade is not currently being encouraged because of the state related policies. Agriculture is a state subject. Now, if that is the case, how could central government could bring the amendment now? It is because though the agriculture and markets are under the state list, something related to commerce and trade is under concurrent list. That is why union government thinks that this amendment can result in effective implementation, because this is under concurrent list. When something is under concurrent list, whatever union government says, that will have higher priority than what state governments say. But earlier agriculture and markets are under state list, so the reforms were not effective. Okay, so what is the benefit the farmers would get now is, it would remove fears of private investors first, that government regulation, too much regulation will stifle their business. That fear will go away, and it will drive up the investment in cold storage and modernization of food supply chain. It prevents wastage. It ensures competitive market and price stabilization. How the price stabilization? Because if there is no demand here, you will take them and supply it to the other place where there won't be, since you are taking to other deficit areas with enough stocks, there won't be sudden rocketing of prices. They will also get due, I mean, with the right prices they will get the goods. So there will be price stabilization, there will not be too much price inflation. This is good for the customers also, this is good for the farmers also. Okay, what next what is about, cabinet also approved the farming produce trade and commerce ordinance. So the previous amendment is mainly related to stock holdings. This amendment is related to how can you sell between the states, you can sell across the country. So that provision is enabled through this ordinance. So till now they cannot sell outside notified APMC markets. Farmers cannot sell outside notified APMC markets. This is majorly true, not for all states. Majorly, this is the trend. Cannot sell outside notified APMC markets. They are restricted to sell only to registered licensees. So because of this, there is barriers for free interstate flow. Okay, then through this amendment, what government has enabled is freedom of choice of sale and purchase of agri produce. Freedom of choice and sale. Freedom of choice of sale for the farmer, purchase for the trader. What are the benefits? It will reduce the marketing cost for the farmers, because all those things will be taken care by the trader. For example, I have certain amount of stock. If I have to send it, I am staying in Karnataka, if I have to send it to Punjab, I need not invest the traveling costs. I need not invest in taking my produce till the market. It is instead the trader or the private sector investor will take that burden. So it will reduce the marketing cost for the farmers. That investor and the trader will have greater network. He will have economies of scale. So he can pool the stocks of different farmers and transport them together. So instead of one farmer taking his produce to the market, when he club a pool of farmers and then do it, the cost will come down. That is how marketing costs are reduced. Then farmers of regions with surplus will get better prices. Earlier they used to burn the produce, but now they can sell it in the deficit regions and they can get good prices. Consumers of regions with shortages will get foodstuff at lower prices, we have discussed. And electronic trading is also going to be enabled. So you can on the online, if you have certain amount of stock, you will indicate it on the portal. The trader will look into that thing and he will order from you that amount of stock. That is how electronic trading happens. Okay, the next one more amendment is related to farmers agreement on price assurance and farm services ordinance. This is mainly this amendment is mainly to protect the farmers. So empower the farmers for engaging with processors, wholesalers. Processors means food processing industry, wholesalers, aggregators, wholesalers, large retailers, exporters, etc. They can, when the farmers can form like a farmer organizations, FPO, farmer product. I am not unable to recollect exact thing. FPOs together, if they are together, they can bargain effectively. So they will have the level playing field with the private investor. If they don't have level playing field, they will be subservient to the private investor. So the deal will not be on equal basis. The private investor may exploit the farmers. To remove that, this ordinance has been brought to empower the farmers to deal with them on equal footing. Okay, till now fragmentation due to small holding sizes, and they have certain weaknesses such as weather dependence, production uncertainties, and market unpredictability. This makes agriculture risky and inefficient. But now assume that there are some 10 farmers who have 2.5 acres. Now if all these 10 farmers come together, it becomes around 30 acres. So these 30 acres will have the advantage of economies of scale. They together can bargain with the investor and they can get the better price. So cost will be saved. Since the private investor is there, he will bring in extra technology. So climate change resilient technology he may bring in, that will help the farmer, that will also help the consumer, and investor will also get better profit. Okay, so in this amendment, the main things is we'll transfer the risk of market unpredictability from the farmer to the sponsor. What does this mean is, before sowing itself, for example, if I have to sow maize, I will already know from the investor how much cost I will get for 1 quintal of maize. Okay, so since I already, whatever happens, he is supposed to mark whether the demand and supply, whether the demand, even if the demand comes down in the market, the investor is supposed to pay that much amount of money, because the farmer, as he agreed. For example, I have agreed to the another investor 2 quintals I will supply. So I will supply, if I supply that 2 quintals, the whatever cost has been already agreed upon, with that cost he should definitely give it to me. He cannot say that in the market there is no demand, so I will pay low. That cannot happen. That is what enabled through this ordinance. Why ordinance now? Because Parliament is not in session. That is why it has been brought through ordinance. Okay, enable the farmer to access modern technology and better inputs. Sale, lease or mortgage of farmers' land is totally prohibited, because there has been concerns from the left-wing parties and left-wing ideologies that this may lead to exploitation of the farmers by the corporate world. To prevent that and to allay those fears, sale, lease and mortgage of farmers' land is totally prohibited. Instead, if the farmer cannot produce whatever he has promised, then there will be some dispute resolution mechanism, effective dispute resolution mechanism will be there, but there will not be lease or sale of that farmer's land. Since he did not produce, so you cannot go and say that you did not produce this much amount of crop, so now I will take away your land. That cannot be done. So that is what exclusively provisioned here. Farmers' land is also protected against any recovery. Effective dispute resolution mechanism is provided. Okay, so I have told you what were the amendments, what are the benefits, but do these amendments help in realizing the government's vision of taking the doubling the farmers' income by 2022? So these, and moreover, some of these amendments are projected as reformist measures under Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So what many authors are telling is these amendments are very much necessary. There is no doubt about it, but they are not sufficient. Why they are not sufficient? Because, for example, in Bihar, APMC Act is not there. That means there is no restriction on the farmers that you have to sell only in this market, only to this trader. So that kind of provision is not there. But even then, there is no improvement in infrastructure. There was no investment from the private investors, because one reason is there is no lack of demand. There is no incentive for the investor to invest there. So when there is no demand, why would the investor take risk? Because he has to bear the brunt of market risk. So that is why that improvement in infrastructure is not coming in Bihar. And most of the farmers, though I told you majority of them are currently forced to sell in APMC markets, but many other farmers are not selling in APMCs. For example, it varies from crop to crop. For example, for the cotton crops, 22% of the crop only is currently being sold in APMC markets. Remaining entire crop, around 78% is not sold in the APMCs. It varies from crop to crop. For commercial crops, the percentage which is sold in APMC is more. For food crops, it is less. So APMCs is the main reason, is not the wholly correct argument. So even outside APMCs they can sell, but still they are not able to get the right price. So what experts are suggesting is, here along with these reform measures, you should create the demand in the market. How do you create during COVID-19 scenario, when people are hit by unemployment, when there is when they don't have any jobs, any work? How will they come and buy the goods? So unless and until you provide them fiscal stimulus package which can directly transfer cash to poor people's hands, you cannot generate the demand. So that is why the experts are arguing that in your stimulus package there should be direct cash benefit transfers. That is what they are telling. So you can quote the for the answer, Can India realize the vision of doubling the farmers' income by 22? Government has done some measures, but these are not enough. What more needs to be done? What just now I have discussed, you can quote those things. Okay, then quickly we will see the prelims related two things. One is periodic labor force survey has conducted by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. You have to remember that it is about 2018 and 19. So from 2017 to 17-18 to 2018-19, unemployment has come down. That means unemployment scenario has come down, employment improved. Okay, labor force participation rate also improved, but this labor force participation rate improvement is marginally. Sometimes they can ask the questions, which of the following statements are correct? So these trends you should remember. Women and rural workers showed the most improvement. Male and urban workers showed marginal improvement. These things you should remember. Okay. One question, you pause the video here and try to answer this question. If you are not able to answer, then you go to the next, my explanation. What can be the logical consequence of increase in savings by households? See the options and choose the right option, and then see the next part of the video. Okay. So as per the what I discussed just now, logical consequence of increase in savings is when the savings increases, the private players can get easily money from the banks, because now the savings have improved. So they can get the money they want in the country itself. They cannot go, they need not go to foreign countries and get the money. So that is how the borrowing from the foreign currency will come down. When the borrowing in foreign currency comes down, current account deficit will decrease. So the correct answer is current account deficit decreases. Important for prelims is these savings rate. Another, we have discussed unemployment trend. Now I am discussing about savings trend. Savings from 2008 to 2019, the savings rate has constantly dropping. The rate is different, but it is constantly dropping. Okay, the rate at which it drops is not uniform, but the drop is constant. Okay, then till to but but this thing may change now, because of COVID-19 related uncertainty, people may save their money. So that is why savings will improve. Until till now, whenever there was a drop in growth, consumption used to fuel the growth. But now this may not happen, because people don't consume on non-essential goods. They will consume only on the essential goods. That is why consumption may not spur growth in short term. Thank you. That's it for today.